So, you ready?
Of course.
I know you needed this podcast this week. All them car troubles. We're back in it now. All right. Well, how's it going, guys? Welcome to this episode 9 of the Film Planet podcast. I'm Nadal.
And I'm Jamal.
And today we're going to be breaking down just a couple things, not too much. Mainly the Maze Runner review, which we just got back from. And as always, it is going to be a spoiler-filled review. So if you intend to see it and you don't want to get ruined for you, maybe watch this podcast tomorrow or something like that.
And when we do spoilers, we don't usually go into plot by plot.
It's not deal
detail.
breakers.
It's not deal breakers. So
but
you can watch, if you haven't seen the movie, you can watch this and still see it.
Come out clean. Yeah.
And come back clean.
So you're good. But just fair warning, there's certain details that you might want to be a surprise to you that we will reveal here. Side note, there's not a lot of surprises in this movie. But anyways, do that. And then Pacific Rim had a new trailer. And then some interesting little tidbits about the new CloverField film coming out April 20th. So we'll kind of dive into that. We'll go ahead and start with the bulk of it. The meat of the podcast today is the Maze Runner review. So we literally just got back from it, an hour and a half ago?
Yeah.
As always, Jamal, I'm going to start off with, what was your hot take on it?
I haven't seen the second Maze Runner, but I watched the first one, and I thought it was okay. This was a good action movie.
Yeah.
The acting was kind of, for an action movie, I mean, it was decent, but what surprised me about the movie is I think the budget was like $62 million.
Yeah. And
it looked better than some of the $100+ million movies. It's such a well-directed movie that this guy should be on people's list.
Well, something I would say to that is, along with these YA or young adult films, because the Maze Runner series was a not a spinoff, but a Hollywood result of the Hunger Games franchise taking off. That's where you got was it the Resurgent series, or what's it called?
Insurgent
and Maze Runner were kind of a Hollywood trying to bank on that young adult genre. Most of those directors would do their first one and then they go on, become famous, and go do bigger and better things. Wes Ball directed 1, 2, and 3 of this film. So he was kind of there he did his trilogy and he followed it out through the end, which is, a good thing. But no, the man knows an action flick, because Maze Runner didn't really start off as an action flick, and then it eventually kind of just like, you know what, we're going to accept that term, and this movie from beginning to end is nonstop action. It comes at you, and it literally does not stop to the very end.
Do you think the story took a hit because of the nonstop action?
Not really. Because if you look at it, I think it only benefited from it, because that story, there's really not much to it. It's a prison escape movie with a underlying theme of, is it worth it to kill a couple of people to save millions?
Almost like a Watchmen.
Yeah. So it's I liked it. I don't think the story suffered from it. I think the story only benefited from it because there's not a lot of meat in there. There's mostly potatoes, if you want to say. There's no meat to the story. The action is the meat, and the potatoes is the story itself. So it kind of, that story is very bland without the action in it. So maybe that was Wes Ball recognizing that and saying, hey, well, I don't want to make it a horror flick because just doesn't really fit the universe, because it is kind of a, not globetrotting, but adventure type action flick. So it just makes more sense to make an action film, and that's what they did. I think if anything, it benefited from it. It definitely didn't suffer in any way, in my opinion. Now something else I would say, you said for the budget and the quality of it, a lot of practical effects. Those stunts were actually happening on screen. When they were chasing after the train at the very beginning, that wasn't a fan blowing in her face. She might have actually kind of dipped out of a moving car and shot a fake gun. But even the helicopter scene, when they lifted up the thing, that was an actual scene. They actually did that out.
See. So
it's, I don't think there will ever be a replacement for practical effects.
I'm not one of these people that's anti
CG or anything.
CG, but nah.
I just think there's a time and place for CG, but when a director says, let's go the practical way, and you got 3 tries to get this shot right, and that's it.
I know the film community gonna kill me over this, but speaking of that, one of the big pluses I thought is Mad Max, because I think Mad Max is an overrated movie. He loved it though.
Love it.
Most people do, but I think it was highly overrated. But one of the best parts about it was his practical.
Mm-hmm. All those cars were real.
Effects. Yeah.
All those cars were real.
Yeah.
Obviously, just for the people who understand, we're not saying everything needs to be practical. We're just there's an underappreciation for it nowadays with a lot of movies that do rely, which you'll see later on in today's podcast. What we're talking about, movies that rely heavily on CG. But no, I mean, let's get into it overall. So you said you've only seen the first one, right? Prior to this, I've seen all 3. The Scorched Trials would be the second one. They definitely ramped it up. It was definitely a different feel from the first one altogether. But this one right here was probably the most solid ending to a trilogy, in my opinion, since like Return of the King. It's not as good as Return of the King, but in terms of answering questions that were asked in the first and second one,
right?
Closing out story arcs for certain characters, it was the most.
Let me ask you this.
Well executed.
Let me ask you this: you don't think the Hunger Games did that good?
The only reason why I can't say that is I haven't seen the last Hunger Games. I've yet to see it. Okay. Which that's on me. I just haven't seen it. I haven't had a chance.
I thought the Hunger Games did okay to it. I think they did an okay job. You don't think Harry Potter did an okay job?
Oh, well, I mean specifically a trilogy. Yeah, a trilogy. Okay. Specifically a trilogy. Where they have
not
3...
just a saga, just a trilogy.
They got 3 movies to get it right.
Okay.
And typically in Hollywood, that is almost never done. Kind of like if you look at... This is going to be a bad example, but Iron Man 1, 2, and 3. If there was no MCU and it was just 1, 2, and 3, could you argue that 3 was a good ending to it? No. You see what I'm saying?
It's a good movie, but no, not
you see what I'm saying?
Way to wrap up a
yeah,
trilogy.
Exactly. But even the quality compared to 1 and 2, was 3 that great?
I think 3. I like 2 better.
Yeah,
but I think quality wise, 3 might have been the better.
You see what I'm saying? This is the first time since Return of the King for me that I could say a trilogy. I like the newer one more than I like the other ones. Like it just the first one was good, the second one was a little bit better, the third one's a little bit better.
So you said it got better as it went.
Got better. Like I said, that's why I was saying it started to.
The payoff was good.
The payoff was good. It adopted its own given action flick. It adopted it and just it leaned into that action genre. Leaned into it hard. One gripe I do have it, because I think I've said it before on this podcast multiple times on multiple episodes. Dylan O'Brien will be the next big action star of this generation. Like, he will be the one that people are talking about in 10 years.
As far as action,
exactly, he will be the action guy here. Guarantee it. Like, I can't control it, but like just American Assassin, which I think we're gonna get a sequel to. I don't know.
I knew too good to get a sequel.
They did leave it off on not a cliffhanger, but they did leave it open. Like,
I don't think it did too good to warrant a sequel.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it. It might be they might force it because Dylan O'Brien is a well-liked actor. People like him, and depending on how Mission Impossible 6 goes, who else like?
Now they might incorporate him into one of those franchises.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you seen him in some type of Bourne trilogy.
Who knows? He might even replace Indiana Jones.
I didn't even think about that. He could carry Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones is a very, while you still have to be a decent actor.
And I know they have, for the Uncharted movie, they have Tom Holland so-called attached, but it's not finalized. What if they go with Dylan O'Brien?
I would hope they would go Dylan O'Brien overall. The man just carries an action flick. He simply carries it, which I think is one of the harder things to do in Hollywood as an actor
these days.
Yeah, these days, like it's just
because comic. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
Comic book movies, they have kind of put the pure action movie on the back burner, like a Den of Thieves or like a Statham, or
but even
outside of the Fast and Furious, and those need to stop.
Yeah,
like that's
a franchise I wish would die.
But that's off the subject. But yeah, that's a wrap.
No, I mean overall the film was good from beginning to end. It had a couple things that I don't want to gripe about, but definitely kind of rubbed me the wrong way. was, yes, they're trying to save humanity, and I get the point of you don't need to be killing all these children, which, by the way, children that are being born into this world are immune to the disease that's destroying the human race. And there's this corporation that is basically finding these immune people.
How cliche on the nose is Wicked.
Is Wicked, yeah.
The corporation's name is Wicked.
Yeah.
That's that. When I saw that, I was kind of like,
we gotta remember this was a book written for teenagers, so
yeah. But even then, that's like talk about dumbing it down, because the Hunger Games was written for teenagers and they didn't dumb it down.
That's true.
They
didn't dumb it down. That's true. Now it just they were finding these kids, trapping them, and basically, I guess a way that the immunity in them is built up is through stress and stuff like that. So hence the maze that they're put in, they're stressed to the point where they produce more and more antibodies. But anyways, they were trapping these kids, basically running tests on them until they died. And eventually, some of them broke out. And this is a mission basically to save their friend who got captured, and they were trying to save him. But Dylan O'Brien's character seemed to never comprehend saving humanity. Especially since they hinted at it, is they mentioned that the virus had gone airborne. Before it was you have to get bit, scratched, stuff like that. It had to be transmitted, through bodily fluids, things like that. They had mentioned that the disease had went airborne, but then they just never talked about it again. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like if Dylan O'Brien's character would have known that, he'd have been more inclined to push for a cure. Ultimately, his blood being the ultimate solution to that.
It seemed like it's a dystopian movie, and I think it takes a little more after Mad Max than the Hunger Games, even though you can see a lot of the Hunger Game influence. So let me say this. Do you think his character looked at it like, this is survival? It's my people against that people. Humanity's already down the crapper.
He did. I could see that if he was a sub-character, a support character.
But that's the main protagonist.
He's the main protagonist who was extreme. I mean, I think I even leaned over to you a couple times. I'm like, does he not get the point? Right. Like, I'm actually on their side. I want them to win. I don't want them to all die for a cure. But at some point, you look at it and go, like, well, his girlfriend, the one that betrayed them, was a brilliant scientist. Why not go to her and be like, okay, use me, don't use the others. Let's find a cure together. You know what I mean? Save your friend, do all this. Now, you could argue that he might not see it that way.
But he didn't even know his body had the cure.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, though. But, like, it's just certain little tropes in there that, like, oh, man, a lot could have been solved. A lot of people didn't have to die if this happened. Right. Or if that happened. Which, like I said, I'm just being a little bit nitpicky. Overall, I like the movie. But I just feel like he was so one-dimensional. If it wasn't for that supporting cast, like Newt and all them with him, I feel like that movie becomes, even the action doesn't support it.
Right.
Like, it became like he was this one emotional character, but then he had the supporting cast around him that were conveying his other emotions.
It was almost like they were the actors and he was just there for the action.
Correct. He was there to carry the scenes from beginning to end, but they were there to give you the information. They were there to give you the context.
It was almost like playing a video game.
Yeah, it was. You're the character, but everyone else is.
You're the avatar.
Yeah, you're the avatar. They're feeding you the information.
Right.
Which, for a video game, perfectly fine.
Right.
For a movie, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
You go to the theaters to get lost in a world, but this isn't, a video game. You are not that character. You just want to be along the ride with that character. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, it's probably the biggest thing for me in that movie was the fact that he was just kind of not pointless, but if it wasn't for the supporting characters, that was a solo action flick with nobody else with him. Ooh, it's a rough movie at that point. Yeah. And that wasn't because of his acting. That is a problem solidified in the actual writing.
Right.
That's not an actor's fault for something like that. That is just the writing. He can only say what he's allowed to say on the screen, Mm-hmm. And he's a newer actor, so he's not going to get to ad-lib like, a Bruce Willis or I'll use Will Ferrell because he ad-libs a lot. But he's not going to get to ad-lib. And then another thing was, what did I see? I wrote it down. Was Lawrence's character. I can't remember the actor's name. The guy's face was all messed up. He was like the leader of that resistance group.
Goggins.
Yeah, Willow Goggins or something like that.
Walter Goggins.
Yeah,
He's in the new Tomb
he
Raider.
I would he killed himself in the movie, and you kind of looked at him and was like, what was the point of that? Why didn't he have somebody else do it for him? And I said at the time, I was like, well, it's probably because he just believed in his own cause on that one. But I would have loved to see a little bit more of him because out of all the other characters, he's probably the most interesting.
He was compelling.
Yeah, he was probably the most interesting character out of everyone on that screen. It was him. It was kind of like, what's his actual motivation? Is it just to get back at Wicked? Which, yes, that's ultimately what it was. But at the same time, it was like, does he really want to free the people, or is he just using the people as a way to get his revenge? So I would almost argue that man was he used to work for Wicked or something, got infected, and they tried to kill him, and he got free.
Right.
And that's why he had some of the cure, it's not the cure for it, but the it's like a medicine that kind of helps stays it off. Serum. It stays it off for a little bit. It doesn't cure you, but it stays it off.
It's almost like this movie was almost like the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And I know he was actually ugly, but I mean,
yeah.
we're talking about more personality. So overall, for me, I give it a 6.7 out of 10 for a January action flick. Yeah. It was cool. I probably won't remember it because I'm not a fan of the Maze Runner. So I haven't seen the second one to really dissect it like I want to.
Mm-hmm.
But I said for that film alone, I give it 6.7 out of 10. Go see it on the biggest screen possible because the effects, the directing is what makes this movie to me. So
it's a cool little. They have a nice little silhouette of the city. That's the last little city on Earth, or at least that we know of. That it looks perfect, pristine, clean, and then the very last shot that you see of it, it's on fire, burning, buildings are falling down. I don't think most people would notice that. I think people like you and I would notice it. But that was something kind of like, is it really worth it? Because look what's going to happen anyway.
Right.
The inevitable the inevitable is the inevitable for a reason. It will happen. So that was a cool little thing, is that Wicked fell not because of the disease, but because of the people they were using to try and cure it, and the people they were keeping out in general. So it's just a cool little that just comes down to directing right there to kind of point out that visually. You got to remember, directors don't always write these films, so their job is to convey visually what's written on paper, which
you can kind of play into today's political landscape.
Yeah,
is it really good to keep these people out? Because eventually they're gonna find their way in, and then what?
And then what exactly?
If you treat them like crap. But anyways, that's political.
Keep your enemies close. Keep your friends close. Keep your enemies closer.
I wouldn't even look at it like that. I'm just looking at, you can't just isolate yourself away from humanity
and feel like that's a solution.
We all have to come to be connected.
Oh, absolutely.
To make progress.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you on that. If I were to, I would probably round up and go give it a solid 7 out of 10. And that's more. I'm more along with him about that 6.7, but the 7, I'm as a fan of the franchise, which I didn't think I would be. I didn't watch the first one until it came out on DVD. And it was kind of you know what, I'll give it a chance. It's a weekend, let me try it. Fell in love with it. I like the franchise, and I like Dylan O'Brien as an actor. I feel like I said, mark my words, he will be the next big action star. It's a matter of time. But yeah, no, give it a 7 out of 10 on there. Anything else you wanted to add to it? No? All right. Well, I mean, if you guys haven't seen it yet, or you plan on seeing it, go see it in IMAX. Or I believe if you live in Oklahoma, we have the Dolby Theater, which is still a big enough screen to go watch.
Too loud for me.
Yeah, that's if you don't, you got to be, if you're a sound audio guy, go watch it in Dolby Theater. But if you're more just you want to see it visually on the biggest screen, IMAX it, which I'm pretty sure every state has an IMAX at this point. And then the next little topic of the day is the Pacific Rim. We'll kind of talk through this because I'm sure most people have already seen this. Came out about 4 or 5 days ago. Yeah. So we'll kind of talk throughout it. We're not going to keep quiet on this one. We'll just talk as we watch it. But let me get that pulled up real quick for you guys. There we go. No, this one, it does look a lot more Speaking of action flicks, a movie that just kind of adopted the action.
Yeah.
It's leaning into that action side of it, which was the strong suit of the first film. Was its
Yeah,
action.
but I mean,
What do you think that's for better or worse?
I don't know yet, man. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't like the second trailer.
You didn't like this one?
I didn't like this second trailer at all. It made the movie look like Transformers with an anime feel. That's what it. That's what it
She
seems
literally
like.
busts out of a barn just like what's his name?
This
did in
what that's what it looks
Transformers.
like to me right now. I'm not saying it's gonna be Transformers. I'm sure it can be better than any of those movies outside
Yeah.
of the first one, but that's what it looks to me like.
I mean, it looks interesting. It I got to figure out what exactly it means because that looked like a Jaeger that was what I can't remember what they're called now. The monsters,
Kaiju.
the kaiju's look like they're dressed up in Jaeger armor now. Um, that looks just like the first Jaeger from the first film that fell into the hole. This movie looks very predictable very early on just from the trailers.
Yeah.
You can clearly see because everyone's wondering what happened to the first one, Charlie Hunnam and all that, and I think that's going to be answered in this film in a very obvious manner that was kind of ruined in this trailer.
This is one of those movies just based on the trailer. I could be surprised.
Yeah,
That I have to see this on the biggest screen possible.
absolutely.
Because the VFX is going to be the reason I'm into this movie. Because I'm not going to lie to y'all, the plot looks stupid, the acting looked cheesy, the world looked cheesy to me. But I can't lie. I mean, it's robots against monsters. So
which is pretty
my
cool.
inner 10-year-old is like, I got to give it a shot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for it. I think you and I were very excited for the first one, and we got burned on that one. I'll take my L on that one. We got burned on that first one, but I think just our excitement alone will get us to want to watch the second one. They clearly just destroy whatever city this is.
Well, you're excited.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm going to give it a chance.
Well,
after this second trailer, I'm
excited in the fact that it's robots and monsters again. Like you said, the inner child in me can't help but get excited for it. You know what I mean? But I mean, for the most part, this is a very generic. This is a hype trailer. This trailer is literally just there to get you hyped up for it.
But I'm rooting for John Boyega. I like him. So
oh yeah,
we'll see. We'll see what it do.
That's a talented actor right there. That it just a matter of time. Like I still don't think he's gotten that right role yet. Other than obviously Finn, he's very perfectly fitted for that. But he hasn't gotten that standalone new franchise lead role yet. That I think he does deserve. Kind of like an Idris Elba. Idris Elba is yet to have that definitive role that's just him, not some subplot character that people want to spin off for. We're looking at the character he plays in Thor. Trust me, as much as the fans want that film, nobody wanted that film. You don't want that film as much as you think you do. But it's the first one was all right. It wasn't terrible. Well, nah, okay, it might have been.
I don't think it was terrible, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, it wasn't good. But the second one I'm excited for. Like I said, it's hard for me to not get excited for monsters and robots. Like, the first one could have been the most crappiest film ever made. And I'd probably still be excited for the second one. If we got a second one. But so I'm excited for it. We'll see what happens when it comes out. But then more to the more interesting news, and it was kind of hinted at CloverField News last week's podcast, was CloverField seems to be, the production company seems to be partnering with Netflix to... Paramount, yeah. Seems to be partnering with Netflix to release... We don't know the time frame how early, but they did hint at earlier on Netflix streaming and then coming out theatrically in theaters and stuff like that.
See, I didn't hear the part about it coming out theatrically.
No, that wasn't that was the article you sent me. They said possibly releasing sooner on Netflix, but still coming out in theaters. So it will release in theaters, but it will stream first on Netflix, which is interesting because there's so many people who already don't like going to the theaters that would go see it at the theaters, but like, well, it's on Netflix. I'd rather stay home and watch it.
But this is my problem with that. CloverField, this CloverField coming out,
especially this one,
it lends itself to the big screen. Why would they do that? It just don't make any sense to me.
That's more of a business thing. Maybe they weren't, because there's so many production companies other than a Fox or a Disney on a movie. You know, there's always like Paramount is always partnering with somebody else to make a movie. You know what I mean? Like the very beginning, opening credits is this production company, this production company, and this production company. Maybe Paramount wants to make this movie. Told JJ, well, you gotta get somebody else. It can't just be us investing the money. And nobody else wanted to, so he eventually went to the last resort of Netflix. Netflix like, okay, but we want streaming rights for the first week before release.
Right.
And Netflix has been that aggressive before. They are willing to change the entire platform of the industry in order to be number one. I think they were sharing at one point on the stock market like $250 a share, higher than Apple. So, I mean, Netflix has money. They're willing to spend it. And to partner with J.J. Abrams on an established franchise, the third one in the series, which will most likely be the last one, honestly. It doesn't surprise me that this happened. I remember I texted you about it. I was like,
I don't think it'll be the last one. It depends on success. We're getting
that's what I'm saying, though.
It's a sequel to
That's
Bright.
what I'm saying. The fact that Netflix is the one putting half the money up here, most likely, because there's no way Paramount is saying stream this on Netflix a week early, and then release it in theaters, because that only hurts them. It doesn't help them. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That tells me that Netflix is putting up a significant amount of money to make this happen.
Yeah.
You see
More
what
power to them.
That's what I'm saying. I don't hate him for it, because that's just going to be more original content for us as the consumer, which Hollywood has proven time and time again they are not willing to do. I mean, Cloverfield's a great example of it. Second one wasn't really going to happen, but JJ was able to use his power and influence to make it happen.
It was a good movie.
And it was a good movie. And even the third one, I was researching it. Even that one has had a little bit of
development hell.
Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me that Netflix is going to be the savior for a lot of these stuff. Arrested Development, original content that they didn't want to put on TV. Netflix came in, swooped it up.
Didn't do good.
It didn't do good, but what I'm saying is Netflix has proven they don't want to do it.
I think what Netflix is doing is working right now, because right now they're in a position where they can play on nostalgia, they can play on name recognition.
Exactly. That only gets you so far, yeah.
But all this throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Ryan Reynolds made a career on it. That's just a
but
shot
Ryan
at Ryan
Reynolds is naturally charismatic and funny too.
I know that's just a shot at Ryan Reynolds, but
this dude hates on Ryan Reynolds.
Just saying. But no, I'm excited for it. I think you and we're gonna go see it in theaters first. Where even if it's a week early on Netflix, we will go to the theater and wait. We'll wait. But that's less Cloverfield news and more just interesting to me as for the industry standpoint. Like, you see it changing. Cloverfield is a big franchise that Netflix was able to be like, okay, we'll give you the money, but we need to stream it first. That happened with one of their last movies. The guy who directed Snowpiercer. I believe is Korean, not Japanese. Sorry.
I can't think of it. Know you're talking about.
Yeah, he released a movie on Netflix. It was a Netflix production and everything, but they wanted to release it in theaters as well. But the biggest theater chain in Korea was like, nah, we have to release a week before you stream it. Because they're like, we're not going to pay money to get this movie in the theater, and then nobody comes to watch it because it's on Netflix first.
Right.
And Netflix was like, okay, then we just won't show it in theater. And I believe they still ended up only releasing that movie, 2 weeks later in theater? Because Netflix wouldn't budge on it, which more power to them, because it's just more and more... the more money Netflix makes, the better it is for us, because it's going to start showing the studios, okay, maybe we need to invest more money into these newer franchises, because essentially Paramount just lost Cloverfield, if this is all true. This is all rumor, by the way. We don't know if this is actually happening, but it started off with a small little rumor, and then this new article came out,
right,
almost basically confirming it. So that's an interesting little aspect, that if Netflix is really going to start competing against a Paramount, I'm going to use Disney as an example. They're a long ways from that, but competing with these production companies, that might scare these companies. Okay, maybe we should put a little bit more money into new stuff, because Netflix is killing us right now with new stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, Bright alone, Netflix gained 8 million subscribers in a 2-month span. Like that's a lot of people. 8 million subscribers at no less than $7 a pop. That's a lot of money. That's not a small amount of money. So it's interesting just from an industry standpoint to see where that stuff goes. But from here on out, it's kind of up in the air. We don't know what's happening right now.
We'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Netflix rarely releases numbers, so it's hard to tell where
That's
they're
what I'm
coming
saying.
from.
Netflix rarely release numbers, so it's kind of like you're in the dark.
It was the 8 million thing was the first time, and I think that even got leaked. That wasn't even an official Netflix thing.
Right.
That just got leaked out. And since there's nothing to go on, people bought it, which I honestly think it actually did happen though. Otherwise, that was
like I said, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But I mean, that was this week's episode. Not too much. We were just kind of going over a couple different things. We wanted to mainly review Death Cure, but we'll probably keep a watch out on the Netflix thing because that's a developing story.
And then next week we have the Winchester movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the Winchester house and
13 Ghosts.
Hopefully we have some topics. Because this will be pretty slow these next 2 weeks. Because the 16th is Black Panther.
Yeah.
Then Annihilation. Then Red Sparrow. So we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah. It'll start to ramp up. It is January, which typically not a lot comes out that's noteworthy. Which that again is something that's changing in the industry. Every month something's happening. But anyways, we'll see you for episode 10 next week, and we'll see you then. Peace.